Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera dan salam satu Malaysia. Yang berbahagia Tan Sri Datuk Sri Azman Hashim, Chairman Board of Trustees Perdana Leadership Foundation. Yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Engineer Dr. Sahul Hamid Abu Bakar, Vice Chancellor Universiti Teknologi Mara. Yang berbahagia Tan Sri Nik Muhammad Ni Yaakob, Executive Director Perdana Leadership Foundation. Distinguished guests, Tan Sri, Puan-Sri, Datuk-Datuk, Datin-Datin, member of the academia, lecturers and students, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I would first and foremost like to thank the Perdana Leadership Foundation for inviting me to address this august audience of future leaders. I have been informed earlier that I will be addressing young people. So you would hear later on that I will be talking to young people, though I know in front of me there are a lot of not so young people around. But it's okay. Now, I'm very glad to be with you here today to share some of my thoughts on the role of education in developing our future leaders. Being with young people, of course, always remind me of my younger days. As a young politician then, I used to be described as a man in a hurry. Now, it is even more so, though I'm not so young anymore. As Deputy Prime Minister, my main task, of course, is to assist the Prime Minister in executing his plans and realizing his vision for the country. And the fact is, our Prime Minister has a very bold plan and, of course, a great vision for Malaysia. We aspire to become a high-income nation with per capita income of $15,000 from the current $7,000 per capita. And this we must achieve in a span of only 10 years. And the high-income nation that we envision not only provides material prosperity, but also a sense of purpose and belonging for its multiracial citizens, guided by the concept of One Malaysia, People First, performance now. We want to transform Malaysia into a land of greater prosperity, blessed with economic affluence, social cohesion, and of course, a responsive government. And this vision is achievable provided that we put our hearts and minds into it. But again, realizing this vision is not an easy task. It requires hard work and intelligence. And of course, it demands sacrifices and perseverance. And as we live in the era of rapid global change, we have, of course, no time to rest on our laurels. We have to move fast, lest we be left behind. In a nutshell, realizing this great vision requires every one of us to be a man in a hurry. Now, what then drives us to achieve this vision? I would say it is our determination our conviction, and above all, it is our idealism. I would define idealism as a strong will for a state of perfection. And in the context of a nation, idealism entails a vision for material prosperity, social justice, political stability, and national unity, not only for the present, but more so for the future. And to me, a nation cannot be lacking of idealism. One, it lacks idealism, there will be no driving force that moves the nation and its people forward. But idealism alone will be futile if it cannot be transformed into reality. For idealism to become a reality, it must be first transformed into a clear vision for the country, and then of course translated into real action. And this of course requires strong leadership. We're grateful that our nation has been blessed with visionary leaders who have transformed the ideals and the vision for the country into reality. We could not have imagined living in in a harmonious, modern, and prosperous Malaysia without strong leadership provided by our past and present leaders. Let me turn to the subject of leadership. What we need now are capable, effective, and visionary leaders who will rise to the challenge of our time. And leadership in this sense is a collective endeavor, a collective will of the people to realize the goals of the nation. And it is true that leadership begins with individual in leadership position. But the fact is, the success of a nation does not rest on the brilliant work of those in high positions alone. It depends on the collective will of the people to work hand in hand for the realizations of a collective goal. Now, leadership development thus entails developing the leaders in each and every one of our citizens, and especially among our young. And leadership in this particular context is not the privilege of selected individuals, but a collective obligation of the entire population, imbued with benign ideals, as the young are often identified with. I believe that our young citizens will rise to the challenge of our time and provide strong leadership for the country in the future. And steering our nations on the path of prosperity thus entails harnessing the right leadership potentials of a young generation in a very holistic manner. And the role of education could not be more essential in developing leadership potentials of our young generation. And indeed, education is a conduit through which leaders are born. As education today creates the leaders of tomorrow, we need to provide quality education that will produce visionary, effective, and capable leaders. Now let me turn to the subject of education, which is of course my favorite subject now, more so as Minister of Education. Now before I continue, let me first define education. Education to me is a process of transmitting knowledge, skills, and values that transforms a person into a good individual. A good education is the one that harnesses the full potential of an individual intellectually, physically, emotionally, and of course spiritually, providing him with the capacity to use his potentials for the betterment of himself, of his community, and of course, of his nation. So education is therefore a holistic process of developing the right potentials in each and every individual. Apart from teaching and learning in classrooms, education also encompasses learning experiences that a person gains beyond the formal process of transmitting knowledge and skills. And this includes, of course, experiential and exploratory learning that enriches students' knowledge beyond the the confines of the textbooks and, of course, stimulate their creative minds. Creativity and innovations of our workforce, which is a prerequisite for high-income economy, can only be enhanced if creative and innovative learning become a major component of our education. As we urgently need to produce the right human capital that will drive our economy into the next level of development, we cannot be content with the old ways of doing things. We have to move forward and, of course, take bold steps to reform our education system so that it will deliver the desired goal of transforming Malaysia into a high-income nation by the year 2020. Guided by our national education philosophy, we need to re-evaluate our curriculum and the way we assess students' progress and achievement. An effective and holistic systems of assessment must be put in place to allow teachers to identify true potentials of the students and nurture those potentials to the fullest. If we fail to identify and nurture the right potentials of our young people now, of course, we run the risk of failing the nations in the future. And we can never take this risk, so of course we have to act now. Now, how does reform in education relate to the business of creating future leaders? We know that the ability to synthesize information in order to understand the bigger picture of real world is essential to enable future leaders to address the increasingly complex global problems. We are living in a world that is highly interconnected, interlinked. An event in one part of the world can have tremendous impact on the rest of the world. Nowhere is this more apparent than in economic and the financial sector. As we have witnessed the crisis, Greece is not just Greece's problem. Crisis in the United States is not confined to the Americans. With the rising tide of globalization, these problems are also our problems. Now, as our global village becomes smaller and more connected, the leaders of the future must be able to have a good grasp of events and trends unfolding across the globe. And this ability to gain information, to analyze information, and to form opinions which inform decisions can only be earned through deep learning and active inquiry that transcends the four walls of the classrooms. We need to create, through our education, knowledgeable and, of course, wise leaders of tomorrow. Now, to nurture this wisdom, our curriculum from primary to tertiary level must encourage learning that goes beyond mere memorizations of facts, but also deep understanding of those facts. It will no longer be just who, what, when, where, or how that matters, but more so why. And good leaders possess the ability to think critically, to weigh the consequences of an action, and to fully understand the factors that underlie an event. And the leaders of tomorrow must, of course, be creative thinkers, active innovators, and informed idealists who are able to apply new ideas to new problems and envision a better future for our country. Now, it's also imperative that history be elevated in status and teaching in our schools and universities. Without sound knowledge of our own history, our own cultural heritage, our future leaders will not be able to understand the social and the cultural context of the society he is to lead. He will not be able to intelligently contemplate the possible consequences of his actions and decisions on his people. And without sound knowledge of history and culture, our future leaders will either become idealists who do not understand the reality, or realists who are devoid of idealism. Now, education too cannot be divorced from values and ethics. Achievement cannot be separated from ethics. An accomplished leader is also a man who leads a life of moral virtue. Character building is thus a cross-cutting element of our education. We need to impart in our future leaders the right values and the right ethics that delineate the boundaries of acceptable behavior. A leader who is imbued by the right values and ethics will, of course, lead wisely. In Malaysia, we have our Asian values of humility, our values of honesty, hard work, and of course compassion to guide us. Our religion also teaches us what is right and what is wrong, and emphasizes the importance of honesty, importance of integrity and respect of each other. And more importantly, as a multiracial country, it is imperative that future leaders of Malaysia respect religious and cultural values of each and every community in this nation. And let us build upon this shared value of respect and dignity, a truly united and harmonious one Malaysia. I'm pleased to see many young and not so young faces among members of the audience today, who I believe shared my thoughts. I believe that you as young leaders understand the scale of responsibility that you will shoulder as future leaders. I assure you that this government is with you to develop your potential to the fullest. You are our future destiny, and we'll do whatever it takes to provide you with the support you need to nurture your leadership potentials. In conclusion, I would like to thank Perdana Leadership Foundation for inviting me to address this august audience. I'm indeed very pleased with your instrumental role in enlightening our young people with perspectives about national leadership and how it leads to where we are now. We all have a role in shaping the future of our country, and let us be conscious of that very important role. To our young future leaders, I have this to say: have confidence in yourself, have faith in your ability. When you believe in your own ability, there is no mountain that you cannot conquer. And let us build this country together with our vision, our idealism, and perseverance. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.